Welcome to the deep dive. We're jumping into something huge today, something that really hits home for a lot of people. Homeownership.
Mm-hmm. That whole American dream idea.
Yeah.
Stability, independence. It's powerful.
It really is. But, that dream, it feels like it's getting, way more complicated.
Oh, absolutely. Especially if you're looking to buy for the first time right now, the market today.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a different beast compared to, say, 10, 20 years ago.
Yeah?
Much tougher.
Totally. And that's exactly why we're doing this. Think of this deep dive as kind of a shortcut to really understanding what's going on.
Right. We've dug into a lot of research trying to unpack not just the money side of things, which is, massive, but also the psychology behind it all. Some of that's pretty surprising.
Yeah, the goal here is that by the end, you'll have a much clearer picture of the trends, the financial roadblocks, and those really deep emotional currents shaping these big decisions.
Hopefully you'll feel genuinely clued in, without getting buried under tons of data.
Okay, so let's start with who we're even talking about. Who is the first-time home buyer today? Because that picture's changing, dramatically.
It really is. And the first thing is, it's actually a smaller group than it used to be.
Smaller? How so?
For certain-time buyers, FTBs, you'll hear them called, they only make up about 24% of all home buyers now. That's a historic low.
Wow, 24%. What was it before?
Before the 2008 crash, it was typically around 40%, so that's a huge drop.
40% down to 24. I mean, what does that signal about just, being able to get into the market at all?
It signals a massive challenge in accessibility. It's getting harder to make that first leap. But here's the weird part, the paradox.
Okay.
The first-time buyers who are managing it, they're actually older now, and on paper, wealthier.
Older and wealthier. Tell me more.
Yeah, the median age climbed up to 38 this year. 38. Back in the 80s was more like late 20s.
38. Okay. And income part.
Their median household income hit $97,000, which is, get this, a $26,000 jump in just the last 2 years.
Wait, up $26,000 in 2 years? That's
Yeah.
a lot. So older, earning significantly more. Why are the barriers still going up faster? Why isn't it easier for them?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or maybe the several $100,000 question now.
Makes sense. And age-wise, who's leading the pack?
It's overwhelmingly millennials. Both younger millennials, say 26 to 34, and older millennials, 35 to 44. Together, they're almost 30% of recent buyers.
And a lot of them are first-timers.
A huge chunk. Among those younger millennials, 71% were buying their first home.
71%.
Yeah.
Wow. So the takeaway here for you listening is this really isn't your parents' housing market. Understanding these shifts, the age, the income, the diversity, the smaller share, it's like essential background for understanding the challenges today.
Absolutely. So, okay, we know a bit about who's buying, but what do they actually want in a home? And maybe more importantly, what are they getting? Because there's often a gap, right?
Definitely seems like there would be that tension between the dream and the reality.
Exactly. So the dream, the ideal, it's still overwhelmingly that detached single-family house.
The classic image.
Totally. It accounts for 75% of purchases. People want the privacy, the control, that traditional symbol of making it.
But yeah, wanting it and affording it in this market, two different things.
Precisely. So reality forces compromises. A huge majority, 85% of first-time buyers, end up buying a previously owned home, not new construction.
85%. And why is that? Just price?
Mostly, yeah. They see it as better overall value or simply a better price. Almost half of younger millennials specifically cited price for choosing pre-owned.
Interesting. Any other reasons besides price?
Yeah, about 28% mentioned liking the charm and character of older homes. So there's an aesthetic appeal for some, too.
And it's not just about detached versus pre-owned, right? People are considering other types of homes more.
Definitely. We're seeing townhouses making up about 7% of purchases. Condos are appealing, too, especially for the lower maintenance or maybe urban locations. Even smaller styles like ranches or cottages are getting traction because they can be more affordable.
It shows that flexibility, that adaptation.
It does. And when you look at what features they really want inside the home, it's all about function over flash.
Function over flash? Like what?
Move-in ready is massive. Over 90% say that's very or somewhat important.
90%? Wow. Why is that so critical? Just avoiding hassle?
It's more than hassle, I think. It signals they likely have zero budget left after closing for repairs or renovations.
Yeah.
They need something stable, immediately livable. It kind of flips the old idea of a starter home you fix up.
Right. No sweat equity if the wallet's empty. Okay, what else? Space still matters.
Oh, yes. Sufficient room. Number of bedrooms, it's still high on the list. Over half-rate bedrooms is very important.
You mentioned compromises. Are they settling for smaller spaces then?
They are. The median size of homes they're buying is actually shrinking. For younger millennials, it's down to around 1,600 square feet median.
1,600. Okay.
And here's a telling stat. Nearly three-quarters, like 75%, of people planning to buy say they're open to getting a smaller home than they originally wanted.
That really shows where the priorities are shifting, doesn't it? They'll give up square footage to get what? What are the must-haves they won't compromise on as easily?
Practical stuff. An attached garage is big. A primary bedroom with its own bathroom, an ensuite. First-floor laundry is desired by like 87%. Things like double sinks in the bathroom, walk-in pantries, features that make daily life easier.
Functionality again.
Exactly. And they're thinking long-term value, too. Energy efficiency is huge. Energy Star appliances, good windows. And tech features like security cameras, video doorbells, smart thermostats, they're making calculated choices.
Okay, so that's the house itself. What about the neighborhood? How important is that?
Hugely important. It's not just about the building. It's seen as like a whole lifestyle investment.
Lifestyle investment. How so?
Well, the overall quality of the neighborhood is paramount, cited by almost 60% of buyers. That includes feeling safe, security. That's foundational.
Makes sense. What else factors in?
For buyers with kids, we're planning them. School quality is often a top priority.
Yeah.
It impacts the family, property values, everything.
Right. And convenience. Commuting.
Right. Big time. Being close to work is very important for over half of buyers now. For some, that's even more important than being close to friends or family, which is interesting.
Priorities shifting there, too.
Yeah. And for millennials specifically, commuting costs are a very important factor for 40% of them. Access to basics matters too. Groceries, restaurants, healthcare nearby. It's all part of the practical calculation.
You mentioned lifestyle. Is there an emotional side to the neighborhood choice too?
Definitely. That sense of community, of belonging, it's crucial psychologically. Feeling connected, not isolated, having supportive neighbors, that contributes massively to overall happiness. Homeowners tend to feel more invested in where they live.
So it's buying into a community, not just a structure.
Precisely. So for you listening, this really paints a picture of where first-time buyers are making these strategic trade-offs. It shows what's truly driving their choices about the property and the place in today's really tough market.
Okay, let's pivot to that toughness, the overwhelming economic reality. You mentioned the affordability squeeze.
Yeah, it's stark. Even though incomes are up for this group, as we said, the cost of owning a home is just running away from wages.
How bad is the gap?
Well, estimates suggest you need an income around $119,800 a year to afford a typical home now.
Wow. $120K, basically.
Yeah, and the really sobering part, only about 1 in 7 renters actually earns that much.
1 in 7? That's a huge barrier right there.
It's massive. And then you layer on high interest rates. When the Fed raises rates to fight inflation, that directly bumps up mortgage costs.
Right, so even if the house price stays the same, your monthly payment goes up because the loan costs more.
Exactly. It pushes more people out. And inflation itself is, like you said earlier, a double whammy.
How so?
Well, it drives up the cost of everything. Gas, food, utilities, so your budget gets squeezed tighter, making it harder to save that down payment and harder to manage the potential mortgage payment, plus all other costs.
And basic economics, supply and demand.
That plays a role too, absolutely. When there's a shortage of affordable homes, which there often is, prices get volatile, they jump quickly, and first-time buyers, who usually have less wiggle room, get hit hardest.
Okay, let's talk specifics on financing. That down payment, you hear about it all the time, is the biggest hurdle.
It really is one of the toughest parts. The median down payment for first-timers hit 9% in 2024.
9%. Doesn't sound huge, but what does that mean in dollars?
Well, on a $400,000 home, which is becoming more typical in many areas, 9% is $36,000.
36 grand. Cash.
Yep.
Upfront.
Yep. And that's before closing costs, which can add thousands more. It's a formidable amount to save up.
Which leads to that PMI issue, right? Private mortgage insurance.
Exactly. You face this tough choice. Do you spend years saving, trying to hit that magic 20% down payment to avoid PMI? But while you're saving, prices or rates might go up even more. Or you put down less, maybe that 9% or even less with certain loans, get into the house sooner, but then you pay extra each month for PMI.
How much extra are we talking?
It varies, but it can easily be $30 to $70 extra per month for every $100,000 you borrow. So it adds up over time. It's a real trade-off.
So how are most first-time buyers actually financing the purchase then? Are they getting loans?
Oh yeah, the vast majority, 91% finance it. Most common are conventional loans, about 52%.
And FHA loans, those are geared towards first-timers sometimes, right?
They are. They make up about 29%. But what's interesting is that FHA loan usage has actually gone down since 2009.
Huh. Any idea why? Stricter rules?
Could be a mix of things, maybe stricter lending standards after the crash, or maybe the buyers who can qualify today are more likely to qualify for conventional loans anyway, or maybe some folks who would have needed FHA are just completely priced out now. It suggests the market's shifting, who can even get these loans.
That makes sense. Now, you mentioned saving $36,000. That's hard. Are people getting help?
Increasingly, yes. This is a really significant trend. About 25% of all first-time buyers got help with their down payment from family or friends, a gift, or a loan.
A quarter of them. Wow.
And for younger millennials, it's even higher, 33%. 1/3 are getting that kind of help.
1 in 3. What does that signal about, the path to ownership today?
It strongly suggests that homeownership is becoming much more dependent on, well, having access to existing family wealth. It's less about just your own income and savings ability and more about whether you can tap into that intergenerational support.
Which could really widen the gap for people who don't have that safety net.
Absolutely. It raises big questions about equity down the line.
And even if you solve the down payment, there's other debt, right? Student loans especially.
Huge factor. Student loans impact 43% of younger millennials. The median amount they owe is around $30,000.
$30,000. And does that directly affect buying a house?
Massively. Almost half, 47% of those younger millennials with student debt say it specifically delayed them from saving for a down payment.
Wow. So it's not just the payment itself, it's the drag on saving.
Exactly. Plus, you've got high rent payments while you're trying to save, maybe credit card debt. It all piles up.
So how are people managing? What are they giving up to make this happen?
They're making some pretty major sacrifices, serious determination. Over half of younger millennials said they cut back on luxury goods.
Okay, what else?
Things like cutting back on entertainment, buying fewer clothes, canceling vacations. Some take on second jobs.
Second jobs, okay.
And some even make extreme moves like moving back in with family, rent-free,
Yeah.
just to be able to save that down payment.
Moving home. Taking a second job, it really shows how badly people want this.
It does. And despite all these hurdles we've talked about, the belief that owning a home is a good financial move, that's still incredibly strong.
Really? Even with the costs and risks?
Yep. About 79% of all buyers, and even higher for millennials, like 80, 84%, they still see it as a good financial investment, often better than investing in stocks, in their view.
That underlying belief, it must be a powerful motivator.
It has to be. It's what keeps people pushing through this financial gauntlet. So for you listening, hopefully this gives you a really clear-eyed view of the money side, the challenges, the sacrifices, the sheer grit involved for first-time buyers today.
Okay, so we've covered the economics, which are huge, but buying a home, it's not just a financial transaction, is it? There's a whole emotional, psychological layer.
Oh, absolutely. It's deeply emotional. And a lot of that is rooted in things way beyond the current market, like our early experiences, our core needs.
Like what kind of experiences?
Well, one really fascinating idea is how your childhood home kind of leaves this imprint on you.
An imprint, like a memory.
Deeper than just memory, like an architectural imprint.
Yeah.
The actual physical feel of the place, the layout, the materials, whether it felt open or cozy, that stuff subconsciously shapes what you find appealing, what feels right in a home as an adult.
Huh. So you might be drawn to certain styles without even knowing why, because it echoes something from your past?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's tied to feelings of comfort, security, positive associations. It's not just about curve appeal. It's about this deeper resonance.
And does the stability of that childhood home matter too? Like whether your parents owned or rented?
Massively. Research consistently shows that kids who grew up in homes their parents own are significantly more likely to become homeowners themselves.
Interesting. Any other effects?
Yeah, they're also more likely to get more education, less likely to need public assistance later on. It shows how that stable foundation can really boost economic mobility across generations.
And the flip side, if childhood housing was unstable,
that can unfortunately have lasting negative impacts. Things like experiencing eviction, frequent moves, overcrowding. That instability can affect a child's development, even contribute to mental health issues down the road.
So for a lot of first-time buyers today, wanting to own a home might be partly about creating that stability they maybe didn't have, or ensuring it for their own kids.
Precisely. It can be this really deep psychological drive for permanence, for security, either to kind of counteract past instability or to consciously build that better foundation.
Which connects right into those core emotional drivers you mentioned. That American dream idea isn't just about money.
Not at all. It's about stability, first and foremost. Owning a home feels like an emotional anchor. It gives you permanence, control over your space, freedom from worrying about rent hikes or your landlord selling up. You can make long-term plans.
And independence, control.
It's huge. Buying a home is a major life milestone for most people. It signifies self-reliance, adulthood. And you get to shape your environment, paint the walls, whatever color you want, That fulfills a really basic human need for control over your surroundings.
And feels like an achievement, right? It's a success symbol.
Definitely. There's a powerful sense of accomplishment. It can boost self-esteem, make you feel like you've reached a certain level, which can even motivate you in other areas of life.
We talked about community earlier in terms of neighborhood choice, but does that tie into the psychology too?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not just the physical house. Feeling part of a community, having those social ties, knowing your neighbors, that combats isolation, boosts happiness. Homeownership often encourages putting down those roots and getting more invested socially.
Okay, so lots of positive drivers. But the actual process of buying, that sounds incredibly stressful.
Oh, it is. It's an emotional roller coaster. One study found 30% of first-time buyers admitted crying at least once during the process.
30%? Wow. What are the main stress points?
You're navigating this mix of excitement, but also intense anxiety about spending so much money, fear of making a mistake, worrying about hidden problems with the house. It's a lot.
And in hot markets, you add FOMO, right? Fear of missing out.
Big time. FOMO can push people to make rush decisions, maybe bid higher than they should, just because they're scared they'll lose out entirely.
And people get attached to houses, don't they? Fall in love with a place.
Oh, yeah. That emotional attachment can make it really hard to be objective about potential problems or the price.
Yeah.
Your heart kind of overrules your head.
Social pressure, too. What friends or family think.
That definitely plays a role. Wanting to keep up with peers, feeling pressure from family, those external expectations can sway decisions.
And then there are these cognitive biases, like mental shortcuts that can lead us astray.
Exactly. Our brains use shortcuts to make complex decisions easier, but sometimes they backfire, like the anchoring effect.
Anchoring, what's that?
It's where the first piece of information you get, usually the listing price, kind of sticks in your head and overly influences how you judge the home's actual value, even if that initial price was way off.
Okay, I can see that. What else?
Confirmation bias is another big one. Once you start liking a place, you tend to look for information that confirms it's a good choice and ignore evidence that contradicts that. You want to justify the emotional investment you've already made.
So you might overlook a red flag in the inspection report because you're already picturing your furniture in the living room.
Pretty much. And then there's just choice overload. Seeing too many houses, trying to weigh too many factors, it can lead to decision fatigue, where you just get overwhelmed and make a less than optimal choice just to be done with it.
So for you listening, just being aware of these emotional traps and mental biases, that can be really powerful, right? Help you stay a bit more grounded.
Absolutely. Recognizing that these forces are at play, the FOMO, the attachment, the biases, can help you pause, take a breath, and try to make decisions that are more rational and truly aligned with your long-term needs, not just your immediate emotions.
Okay, so let's try and pull all these threads together. We've got the changing profile of the buyer, their wants versus reality, the huge economic hurdles, and these deep psychological drivers. How do they all interact?
Well, it really is a constant negotiation, isn't it? That's the key theme. The journey is this dynamic interplay where the dream vision, maybe that big detached house, keeps bumping up against the hard economic facts, especially affordability.
It's a balancing act.
It is, and it leads directly to that strategic adaptation we talked about.
Accepting smaller homes, older homes.
Right. Prioritizing the functional stuff, the long-term value features like energy efficiency over maybe granite countertops or stainless steel appliances right away. It's adaptation born out of necessity, but also a reflection of wanting that core dream of ownership itself.
And the reliance on family help for down payments. What are the broader implications there?
It really highlights how access to homeownership might be shifting. If it becomes more dependent on having family wealth to draw on, that could definitely widen the equity gap between those who have that support and those who don't, affecting social mobility for generations to come.
That's a sobering thought.
It is. And you see how the desires become integrated, right?
Uh,
That psychological need for stability we discussed, maybe rooted in childhood, influences what kind of place feels right, what feels secure.
and then the neighborhood choice isn't just practical, like commute times.
No, it becomes this holistic investment. It has to meet the practical needs, work, schools, groceries, but also those deeper psychological needs for safety, belonging, community. It all has to line up.
With that emotional layer over everything.
Exactly. The stress, the excitement, the fear, the cognitive biases, they color the whole process, influencing decisions in ways that aren't always purely logical or financial.
So what it really boils down to then is that the kinds of homes first-time buyers end up in and where they are. It's a direct result of navigating this complex web. It's the outcome of balancing aspirations, psychological needs, and the very real economic constraints they're operating under.
Couldn't have said it better. It's a journey defined by resilience, adaptation, and navigating that constant push and pull.
Okay, let's quickly recap the key takeaways from this deep dive. First, affordability is, clearly the biggest single constraint shaping everything for first-time buyer.
Absolutely dominant.
Yeah.
Yet that ideal of the detached single-family home, it still holds a powerful appeal, even if reality forces major compromises on size or buying pre-owned instead of new.
And inside the home, functionality wins out over luxury. People are prioritizing practical features, move-in readiness, and things that offer long-term value like energy efficiency.
Right. And the neighborhood isn't an afterthought. It's a core part of the investment, chosen for practical convenience, but also for safety, community, and that sense of belonging.
And underpinning all of this are those profound psychological factors. The legacy of childhood, the need for stability, the emotional roller coaster of the process itself, and those tricky cognitive biases. It makes the whole thing incredibly complex and personal.
Yeah. And despite every single challenge we've laid out, that fundamental desire for home ownership, it's still incredibly strong.
Yeah.
It just requires, well, a ton of resilience and flexibility from buyers today.
It really is a testament to the power of that dream. So here's something for you to think about after listening to all this. What does it really mean for our society if getting a foothold in homeownership increasingly depends on having family wealth behind you?
Mm-hmm. How might that change our communities? Economic mobility in the future?
Yeah, and maybe on a more personal level, how might understanding these economic pressures and psychological drivers influence your own perspective, whether you're thinking about buying a home yourself or just observing the market? Something to mull over.
And we want to mention that this deep dive was made possible by some really comprehensive research provided by Kenneth Bowden. If you happen to be navigating your own real estate journey, especially in the Tampa Bay area, he could be a great resource.
Definitely. Kenneth is a realtor there with over 12 years of experience, currently with eXp Realty.
You can actually reach out to him directly if you have questions or need guidance.
Yep. You can call or text Kenneth at 813-648-7729. That's 813-648-7729. Or shoot him an email.
His email is kenneth@kennethbowden.com.
Let me spell that out. KENNETH at KENNETHBODEN.com.